9:35.
T-minus 14 minutes, 15 seconds and counting.
Horizontal set config. You have a go for performing MTS helium reconfig.
Okay, I'll go ahead and confirm horizontal set config now complete and MTS helium reconfig and work.
Copy.
Pilot Kevin Ford is
Go ahead. Give you 1060.
is performing the main propulsion system helium reconfiguration, which opens up the helium ISO valves that permit in-flight purges of the 3 engines,
Copy, 10.
as well as provide an emergency source of pressure for pneumatic shutdown of the engines.
NTD Houston flight on 212.
Go ahead, flight.
I can give you step 1049, VFS pre-flight uplink load is complete.
And I copy that, sir, and CVFS NTD.
CVFS copies.
T-minus 13 minutes, 20 seconds and counting.
Adjust fuel cell loads between 250 and 290 amps. Copy and work.
And F50 copies.
No technical issues are in work.
MTS helium reconfig complete.
Copy.
And SRO NTD on 212.
SRO.
At this time, I'll give you step 1068. KSC area is clear for launch.
Copy. KC area clear for launch.
T-minus 12 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. We are green on all launch weather criteria.
And NTD.
Go ahead.
I can give you step 1077, OSD deactivated to the pad, complete.
And I copy that.
T-minus 11 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. Houston Spaceflight Meteorology Group is go, both observed and forecast for return to launch site weather. And here at Kennedy, we are go. The status board for all weather constraints is all green.
And attention on the net, our countdown clock will hold at T-minus 9 minutes in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
NTD Launch Director 212.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I've conferred with our flight director, and at this time I'd like for you to set up for the preferred launch time.
I copy, sir. We will set up for preferred.
T-minus 10 minutes, 24 seconds and counting.
Discontinue all non-mandatory LDB traffic for remainder of count.
We will be selecting our preferred launch time of 11:59 and 37 seconds p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. T-minus 10 minutes and counting.
On the net, we are 1 minute from our planned hold at T-minus 9.
Once again, we're working no technical issues. Weather appears to be go. T-minus 9 minutes, 40 seconds and counting.
OTCS2B. Go. No hold
requested. We had a fuel cell condenser exit temperature exceed our red line. I'd like to talk on 161.
Stand by. TD.
And FCP, repeat again your report.
Coming up on the 9-minute hold.
ST switching on 212.
9 minutes and holding.
And attention on the net, our countdown clock is holding at T-minus 9 minutes. Our duration of hold will be 45 minutes, 37 seconds. And FCP entity?
This is FCP.
All right, go ahead with your report, please.
We had an excursion on LCC FCP-02 for fuel cell 2 condenser exit temperature. Exceeded 160-degree red line. We do have allowance for that when we have a load change.
And SP entity?
ST switching, ma'am.
And let's see, did you have a load change, and is this expected?
Yes, and it's back in limits now.
And let's see, SP, do you want to talk this here? You want to take it over to 161 and come back?
Well, we're here in the hold, NTD, so I'd like to have them over on 161, please. And we did see, it looks to me like we saw a rise on all three of them. Looks like this fuel cell 2 just popped up a little high.
All right, well, FCP, if you'd go over to 161 and then come back and let us know what we need to do here and if there's any action we need to take.
FCP going to 161.
Entity, CVSS.
Go ahead, CBSS.
The T-minus 20-minute GPC dump is complete.
Everything remains on course for the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And when the count resumes, the ground launch sequencer will be in control of all critical operations. This master computer program will issue all of the commands necessary to perform the final critical tasks required to put Discovery in the final launch configuration.
At this time, I'll give you step 10.
Once Discovery lifts off, command and control of STS-128 switches to mission control in Houston. And at this time, we'll go there for an update from Rob Navius.
Thanks, Mike, and good evening from Mission Control Houston at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Flight controllers belonging to the Ascent team have been on console since 5 p.m. today, monitoring Discovery systems in preparation for its launch to resupply the International Space Station. The Ascent team once again led tonight by Flight Director Richard Jones with the help of astronaut Eric Bowe, who is the spacecraft communicator or CAPCOM. Bowe will talk directly to the crew during Discovery's 8.5-minute ride to orbit. He's joined on console by astronaut Chris Ferguson, who is monitoring weather conditions at the Kennedy Space Center. Ferguson is in direct contact with Chief Astronaut Steve Lindsay, who's flying the shuttle training aircraft around the vicinity of the shuttle landing strip at the Cape. Lindsay is assessing the weather in the event Discovery has to perform a return to launch site abort. At the time of Discovery's launch, the International Space Station will be orbiting 225 miles over the Indian Ocean southwest of Tasmania. The launch is timed to match the moment when the Earth's rotation carries Launch Pad 39A into the correct plane of the station's orbit. Down the hall from the shuttle flight control room, another team of flight controllers is on duty in the International Space Station flight control room, led by Flight Director Mike Sarafin, as they watch over the activities of the half-dozen crew members comprising the Expedition 20 crew aboard the International Space Station. The crew is in its sleep period at this hour. Shuttle flight controllers here in Houston once again watching weather conditions at the overseas abort sites in Spain and France, which would be used in the unlikely event of an engine failure early in Discovery's climb to orbit. Morón, Spain is considered the prime transoceanic abort site today for Discovery and its crew. About 30 seconds into its flight following launch, Discovery's computers will ease back the main engines to 72% of rated performance, designed to lessen aerodynamic forces imposed on the shuttle's fuel tank and the aero surfaces of the orbiter. Those engines will throttle back up to 104% of capability about 40 seconds later. Shortly after solid rocket booster separation, the orbital maneuvering system engines will ignite for 1 minute 52 seconds, providing an assist for the shuttle as it heads uphill. And 8.5 minutes after launch, Discovery's main engines will be commanded to shut off, and the shuttle will separate from its fuel tank. Discovery will settle into an oval-shaped orbit about 135 statute miles above the Earth at its apogee, which will be refined to a higher elliptical orbit above the Earth 45 minutes into the flight through a firing of the shuttle's maneuvering jets. Additional rendezvous maneuvers will be executed over the course of the next 2 days, bringing Discovery to a docking with the International Space Station on Sunday night.
2 seconds, 320.
Seconds after discarding the fuel tank, Commander Rick Sturckow will execute a 20-second maneuver, enabling Discovery's umbilical well cameras to capture flash photography concentrated on the tank's ice frost ramps. This is being done since tonight there will be no handheld digital still photography or video, with Discovery flying in darkness after main engine cutoff. The flash imagery will be downlinked prior to the start of the crew's sleep period for analysis. The 7 crew members will go to work shortly after the shuttle's payload bay doors are open, activating systems, unstowing equipment, and preparing for their first 8-hour sleep period in orbit, which will begin just before 5:30 a.m. Central Time Saturday. 2 days away from the silver anniversary of Discovery's maiden launch, the Ascent team and Flight Director Richard Jones are set to take over control of the 37th flight of Discovery and the 128th mission in shuttle program history at solid rocket booster ignition. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, this is Mission Control Houston.
Mila.
Mila, copy.
STM.
STM copies.
Safety console.
Thank you, Rob.
SPE.
We have just under 40 minutes remaining in this hold at T-minus 9 minutes. All continues to go well.
0 copies.
And CDR.
CDR copies.
And CGLS. CGLS copies.
And NTD CFCP?
Go ahead, FCP.
Okay, for our issue with LCC FCP02, we've gone and talked about on 161. We had a minor excursion on temperature on condenser exit for about a second. Our KOH concentration stayed within limits, and no issue at this time, and we'll go for lunch.
I copy that, and let's see, SP entity?
SP's with you, ma'am.
Sir, did you copy FCP's report?
I did, NTD. We went over, had an integrated conversation over on 161. We understand that fuel cell number 2 is already running a little bit above with number 2 condenser exit temperature, and that we were within the requirements of FCP02, and parenthetical number 5 is being able to explain this during our transition to high loads. And we did go ahead and involve the folks over in Frederick 2. They've taken a look at it as well and concur with our recommendation that we go. And we did talk with Eagle and the Ascent and Entry Flight Director as well, and they concur with our recommendation. So at this time, I am go.
All right, I copy that, and let's see, SPE, your recommendation on paper for this?
It is a normal and understood configuration. We just happen to have a high condenser exit temp on number 2. That's an understood condition, and I don't think we need any additional paper.
All right, I copy that, and I concur. And let's see, FCP, I copy we're back in limits now, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
And we are go for launch.
Yes.
And SPE, you copy and concur?
SP copies and concurs.
All right, thank you for the update.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. And as you heard, the issue that was raised briefly about the fuel cell number 2 temperature excursion is a non-issue. We are go for launch with that. We're working no technical issues.
Copy that. And NTD, CLHY and CLOX, OTC.
NTD, go ahead.
For CLOX. LHY. Completion sensor simulated command removal and final checkout is complete per S1004.
And NTD copies?
CLOX copies. Copy.
And CGLS entity? CGLS, go ahead. Yes, per step 1091, set our countdown clock to resume at 035037. GLS copies, and that is complete.
The ground launch sequencer monitors about 1,000 different critical orbiter functions during the final 9 minutes of the count to make certain they do not fall out of limits.
1096 for our ground camera status.
Copy. Long range north, 8. Long range south, 8. Medium range north, 6. Medium range south, 6. Medium range west, 6. Short range, 6.
And I copy all.
well.
Yes, sir. I'll give you 1098. Ground camera system is verified ready to support launch, sir.
Understood. Thank you.
And Houston flight entity?
Entity Houston flight, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Our past G1 and BFS launch target uplink loading. Will that be required today?
Neither of those are required. 1100 and 1103 not required.
All right, copy. Not performed for both. Thank you.
TC copies. PLT OTC, clear hardware caution and warning memory, and verify no unexpected errors.
PLT, that's in work. OTC, PLT, hardware caution and warning memory clear. No unexpected errors.
Thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. 34 minutes, 38 seconds remain in the hold. We're not working any technical issues. Weather is go, both for launch and for return to launch site landing, should that become necessary. Later during this hold, several polls will be taken to verify that the teams are ready to proceed with launch. NASA Test Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson will poll all the engineers here in Firing Room 4. Mission Management Team Chairman Mike Moses will poll members of the Mission Management Team. Everyone here in the firing room is on the same communications channel, and they will stay there from now through the remainder of the count. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding.
OTC is HD. Go ahead. I gave you 1140 at this time. Confidence checks complete. No anomalies noted. Copy 1140.
31 minutes, 43 seconds remaining in the hold. All is very quiet here in the firing room, indicative of how well everything is going. We're working no issues. Weather is favorable. Flight crew is on board the orbiter. And everything is go. Liftoff tonight is planned for 11:59 and 37 seconds Eastern Daylight Time.
LPS in today.
LPS.
Yes, could you send someone up to the AA row? Having an issue with PC Goal.
Sure, I'll send someone up.
Space Shuttle Discovery and her 7 astronauts sit alone on Launch Pad 39A on a beautiful night in Florida, awaiting liftoff at 11:59 p.m. Weather radar continues to show the diminishment of any storms that were in the area. They're dissipating, none within the 20 nautical mile circle that we're concerned about for return to launch site abort, nor within the 10 nautical mile circle that we're concerned with for launch. We have 29 minutes remaining in our hold. This is Shuttle Launch Control. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Slightly under 26 minutes remain in this hold. Our main concern entering today was for weather. And we had our share of it early on. In fact, it delayed our tanking or our filling of the external tank by a few minutes. But that operation progressed normally. We completed it on time within about 3 hours. And then we had some storms in the area that created a slight delay for the final inspection team as it was making its way down the fixed service structure, doing its walk down to look for the formation of any ice or frost. They were delayed by about 30 minutes in all, but still managed to complete their inspection. We had rain at the launch pad, but that is all cleared up and moved out or dissipated. And we are now go observed and go forecast. So weather is not a concern at this point. And we are working no technical issues. Everything is on track for the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery to celebrate its 25th birthday in space, having launched its maiden flight on August 30th, 1984. Liftoff is planned for 11:59 and 39 seconds. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. 22 minutes, 24 seconds remaining in this hold. In about 15 minutes, STS-128 Launch Director Pete Nikolenko will conduct polls. He just concluded a conversation with Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters, who said everything looks good for weather tonight. The nearest system is about 35 miles to the east of Kennedy Space Center. Not at all a concern for us tonight. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group in Houston has cleared Discovery for landing at the shuttle landing facility should that become necessary. We are both forecast and observed go. Space Shuttle Discovery is launching on a provisional flight to the International Space Station, carrying supplies as well as science experiments in the Leonardo Multi-Purpose Logistics Module, which is safely tucked into Discovery's payload bay. It's a 13-day mission to the space station, and Discovery's 7 crew members will be joining the 6 crew members of the space station, forming once again a 13-member crew in space. Nicole Stott will be replacing Tim Kopra as a flight engineer aboard the space station. In this view, the so-called beanie cap atop the external tank is visible with the moon shining through. This is shuttle launch control. 18.5 minutes remain in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes. Space Shuttle Discovery is bathed in thousands of watts of xenon light, which is much better than being bathed in rainwater, which is what occurred to us Monday when we were in a similar situation. Tonight, everything seems to be going in our favor, both technically and from the weather standpoint. It's a beautiful night for a launch. Once again, Discovery's liftoff time is 11:59 and 37 seconds.
And LPS entity.
LPS.
Yes, sir. Priority 1602. Are you ready for step 117 Alpha?
Yes, ma'am, we're ready.
I'll put that in work. And OTC, TBC, and PTC entity.
TBC.
PTC.
Yes, prior deviation, step 1117 Alpha, the spa will be terminated. Spa will be out of operation for the remainder of Sioux-7. $SPRDR type retrievals from the console will not be available, and spa listings will not be available for the remainder of count. OTC copy?
OTC copies.
TBC?
TBC copies.
And PTC?
PTC copies.
And LPS entity?
LPS.
Yes, sir. Our team has been informed. You have a go to terminate the spa.
Copy and work.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. We have 13.5 minutes remaining in this hold. We are working no technical issues. And weather remains go. It's extremely quiet in the firing room.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can give you step, per the DEV, step 1117 Delta. The spa termination is complete.
I copy that. OTC, TBC, and PTC, you copy. Spa termination is complete.
OTC copies.
TBC copies.
PTC copies.
OTC, PVD?
No.
I can give you step 1124 with a not performed on 1121.
Copy.
With no technical issues being worked, no weather issues, there is very little conversation in the firing room, on the loops, on the communication circuits, or across the airwaves. Everyone is focused on their data and preparing for the expected launch of Discovery at 11:59 p.m. This is Shuttle Launch Control. And we have 19 minutes till the planned liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery. Just under 10 minutes remain in our hold. This is Shuttle Launch Control. 8 minutes remaining in our hold at T-minus 9 minutes. Yet to come are several polls that will be taken to verify that the team is ready for launch. All indications are that there are no technical issues and everyone is ready. Weather is not a factor tonight. It is 100% go. Space Shuttle Discovery is poised on Launch Pad 39A to begin a 13-day mission to the International Space Station.
MS-1 OTC, activate the V10 recorder.
MS-1 in work.
CISL, JRPS, and Houston Flight perform the L-15-minute recorder activation. CISL,
ISL copies.
JRPS,
JRPS copy.
and Houston Flight.
Houston Flight copies.
And attention on the net, this is CNTD performing the launch status checks. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC,
OTC go.
TBC,
TBC go.
PTC,
PTC go.
LPS,
LPS is go.
Houston Flight,
Houston Flight is go.
MILA,
Mila's go.
STM,
STM's go.
Safety Console,
Safety's go.
SPE,
SP is go.
LRD,
LRD copies.
LRD, verify ready to resume count.
LRD is go.
SRO,
SR is go.
and CDR.
CDR is go.
And Launch Director, NTD.
Launch Director, go ahead.
Yes, sir. At this time, I can give you step 1126. Our launch team is ready to proceed. We are tracking no constraints.
All right, copy that. I'll conduct my poll. KSC Processing, Chief Engineer, verify no constraints to launch.
No constraints.
Copy, thank you, Steve. KSC Shuttle, Safety Mission Assurance.
KSC Safety and Mission Assurance is ready to go, Pete.
Copy, thanks, Mark. KSC Payload Launch Manager.
Pete, the ISS ground processing team's ready to go. Copy that. Thanks, Bill. Range weather.
Weather has no constraints for launch.
Thank you, Kathy. And Ops Manager.
Let's see, Pete, we're looking good at concur. We got no constraints, no issues here from the MMT. You are go to launch.
Copy that. Thanks, Mike. Discovery, Launch Director.
Discovery, go ahead, sir.
Well, CJ, the vehicle's clean and the teams are go. And this time Mother Nature is cooperating, so it looks like third time really is the charm. We wish you and your team good luck and Godspeed.
Thanks, Pete. On behalf of the crew of Discovery, thanks to everyone who helped prepare for this mission. Let's go step up the science on the International Space Station.
At NTD Launch Director, you do have a go to launch Discovery.
And I copy that, Launch Director. And attention on the net, we have 4 minutes, 9 seconds left in our hold here at T-minus 9 minutes.
This is Shuttle Launch Control with good news. A result of the polls, we are go for launch. No technical issues, no weather constraints.
And SRO, go ahead.
We're 3 minutes, 45 seconds away from picking up the count.
And attention on the net, our countdown clock will pick up in 2 minutes, 56 seconds.
Two minutes, 30 seconds from picking up the count.
NTD ISL.
Go ahead, ISL.
Recorder activation complete.
I copy, step 1120, thank you.
One minute, 30 seconds away from resuming the count at T-minus 9 minutes.
Our countdown clock will start in 1 minute.
10 minutes to the launch of Space Shuttle Endeavour on mission STS-128. Space Shuttle Discovery on mission STS-128. And we're just a few seconds away from resuming the count.
countdown clock will resume on my mark.
3, 2, 1.
Mark.
And we are at T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
GLS auto sequence has been initiated.
And the ground launch sequencer has been initiated. All countdown functions now are automatically controlled by the GLS computer located in the firing room integration console. NASA Test Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson is about to call for the transmittal of stored pre-launch commands. Everything is go. T-minus 8 minutes, 30 seconds and counting.
PLT OTC, connect essential buses to fuel cells per your checklist. PLT, that's in work.
T-minus 8 minutes and counting. Pilot Kevin Ford is now flipping switches in the cockpit to directly connect the 3 fuel cells to the essential power buses.
OTC, PLT, essential buses all connected to the fuel cells.
Copy.
And that work is complete. T-minus 7 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting.
GLS is go for orbiter access arm retract.
And the orbiter access arm is now being retracted away from Discovery.
LMC, and of course the Colbert safely into orbit. Have a great flight.
Yes.
Those words from orbiter test conductor John Craxton. The orbiter access arm is the walkway used by the crew to gain entry into and out of the shuttle, and it can be returned to position within seconds if necessary. T-minus 6 minutes, 56 seconds and counting. T-minus 6 minutes, 30 seconds and counting.
CRPS OTC, start APU display recorders.
Display recorders running.
PLT OTC, perform APU pre-start.
PLT, that's in work.
Orbiter test conductor has given pilot Kevin Ford the go-ahead to perform the auxiliary power unit pre-start procedure. The APUs provide pressure to the shuttle's 3 hydraulic systems, which move the main engine nozzles and the aero surfaces. T-minus 5 minutes, 55 seconds, and counting.
OTC, PLT, APU pre-start complete. 3 great talkbacks. Copy.
APU pre-start is complete. Everything looks good. We're working no technical issues. T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting. T-minus 5 minutes, 10 seconds and counting, and we'll be standing by for a go for APU start.
GLS is go for orbiter APU start.
PLT OTC, perform APU start. And CDR OTC, reconfigure heaters.
T-minus 4 minutes, 44 seconds and counting.
Heater reconfig complete.
Copy.
The launch team has terminated liquid oxygen replenish to the external tank and is now initiating LOX drain back. T-minus 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
APU start complete. 3 at high green.
Copy.
3 good auxiliary power units reported by pilot Kevin Ford. T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
CLS is go for purge sequence 4.
The final helium purge of the 3 main engines is underway in preparation for main engine start. And a final test of the flight control surfaces is now being conducted. It's a pre-programmed pattern of movements designed to verify the readiness for launch of the flight control surfaces, the elevons, speed brakes, and rudder. T-minus 3 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Final aero surface checks are complete, and Discovery's 3 main engines will be gimbaled through a pre-programmed series of maneuvers as a final test before launch. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. Final pressurization of the external tank's liquid oxygen tank is underway.
CLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
And we're completing the purge of the shuttle main engines. T-minus 2 minutes, 45 seconds and counting.
PLT, OTC, clear caution warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
PLT, that's in work.
T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. External fuel cell loading is terminated, and the gaseous oxygen vent hood, or beanie cap, is slowly being retracted away from the top of the external tank.
OTC, PLT, caution warning memory, clear, no unexpected errors.
Copy and Discovery OTC, close and lock your visors, initiate O2 flow.
T-minus 2 minutes.
Discovery, roger.
CLS is go for EP LH2 pressurization.
Liquid hydrogen replenish on the external tank is now being terminated. The astronauts are closing their helmet visors, allowing their suits to be fully pressurized. T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds, and counting.
30 seconds.
All systems are go. We're about 90 seconds from the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery. T-minus 1 minute, 15 seconds. The liquid hydrogen tank inside the external tank is reported to be at the proper flight pressure. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The booster joint heaters are being deactivated at this time. T-minus 50 seconds. Transitioning to orbital internal power. Discovery is now running off of its 3 onboard fuel cells. T-minus 38 seconds and counting. Coming up on a go for auto sequence start at T-minus 31 seconds.
CLS is go for auto sequence start.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions.
20.
T-minus 20 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. The sound suppression water system has been activated.
10. CLS is go for main engine start.
We have a go for main engine start. And we have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery, celebrating its 25th birthday by racking up science and supplies to the space station.
Houston now controlling the midnight ride of Rick Sturckow and his crew to the International Space Station. Discovery rolling on to the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Outpost. "32 seconds into the flight. The 3 liquid fuel main engines soon will throttle back to 72% of rated performance, down in the bucket, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it goes transonic. Discovery 3.5 miles in altitude, 4 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. Standing by for the throttle up call now from Capcom Eric Bowe.
Discovery. Copy, go ahead, throttle up.
The throttle up call acknowledged by Commander Rick Sturckow, joined on the flight deck by pilot Kevin Ford, flight engineer José Hernández, and Pat Forrester. Seated down on the middeck are Danny Olivas, Christopher Fuglesang of the European Space Agency, and Nicole Stott, hitching a ride for 3 months on the International Space Station. 1 minute 30 seconds into the flight. All of Discovery's systems performing normally. 17 miles in altitude, 18 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. One minute 50 seconds into the flight. Standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Booster officer confirms staging a good solid rocket booster separation. Guidance now converging, the onboard computers steering the shuttle for its precise path to the International Space Station. Discovery 37 miles in altitude, 54 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. 3 good main engines. 3 good auxiliary power units, 3 good fuel cells.
Discovery, 2-engine Maroon. Copy, 2-engine Maroon.
Three minutes into the flight, everything going very well for Discovery. 47 miles in altitude, 85 miles downrange. The orbital maneuvering system engines ignited, Discovery kicking on the afterburners for 1 minute 52 seconds, assisting the shuttle and its crew on their climb to orbit. Discovery flying on the singular power of its 3 liquid fuel main engines, draining a half a ton of fuel per second from the shuttle's large fuel tank. Discovery coming up on the point of negative return, where the shuttle will be too far downrange, too high in altitude to return to the launch site in the event of an engine failure.
Discovery, negative return. Copy, Houston, negative return.
Discovery speeding straight as an arrow on its night flight toward a date with the International Space Station Sunday night. 4 minutes, 8 seconds into the flight, Discovery 61 miles in altitude, 163 miles downrange from the Cape. All systems in great shape. More than halfway toward its preliminary orbit, Discovery's engines, fuel cells, and auxiliary power units performing as advertised. Discovery now 212 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. The Environmental Systems Officer reports the activation of a good flash evaporator system providing cooling for Discovery's avionics until the payload bay doors are open an hour and a half into the flight. 5 minutes into the ascent toward orbit. This view from a camera on the external fuel tank.
Discovery, press to ATO, select Istrus. Press to ATO, will select Istrus.
That call from Capcom Eric Bowe indicating that Discovery can make minimal abort to orbit targets in the event of an engine failure. However, all 3 main engines continue to perform perfectly.
Discovery, single engine, Ops 3. Copy, single engine, Ops 3.
Discovery now 336 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, coming up on the 6-minute mark into the flight. The guidance officer in Mission Control confirming that Discovery's computers have commanded the main engines to swivel again, enabling the shuttle to roll to a heads-up position above the fuel tank, gaining more favorable communications through the tracking and data relay satellite system as it heads uphill.
Single engine Istris 104. Discovery, roger. And Discovery, press to MECO. Roger, press to MECO.
That call from Capcom Eric Bowe indicating that Discovery can make normal main engine cutoff targets in the event of an engine failure. However, 6.5 minutes into the flight, all 3 main engines performing normally. Discovery now 466 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. Less than 2 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Discovery, single engine press 104, nominal shutdown plan, go for the 22nd plus X, no go to pitch. Discovery, copy all, 22nd plus X, no go to pitch.
The 22nd plus X referred to by Capcom Eric Bowe is the maneuver that Commander Rick Sturckow will perform after external tank separation, enabling umbilical well cameras to obtain flash photography of the fuel tank as it drifts away. 7.5 minutes into the flight, the main engines being throttled down to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 7 crew members to that of 3 times the effect of gravity. Discovery currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles per second. Discovery and its crew 700 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. 40 seconds of powered flight remaining. Standing by now for main engine cutoff. That will be followed a few seconds later by the separation of the external fuel tank. Booster officer confirms a good main engine cutoff. Now standing by for external tank separation. External tank separation confirmed. Discovery now in its preliminary orbit. You can see the flash photography as Discovery fades away from the camera view. Good maneuver being commanded by Rick Sturckow, maneuvering Discovery so that those cameras embedded in the umbilical well can perform that flash photography of the discarded external fuel tank. An uneventful ride to orbit for the Shuttle Discovery, 2 days shy of its 25th anniversary of its maiden flight, beginning a 13-day mission.
Discovery, nominal MECO ohms 1 is not required. Discovery, roger.
Back here at Mission Control Houston, the Ascent team of flight controllers that has been led throughout the course of the night by Flight Director Richard Jones. He is the second from the right on your picture. On the far right is Lead Flight Director Tony Sacacci, who will take over that same console on Saturday afternoon as the Orbit 1 team, the lead shuttle flight control team, takes over operations for this mission. Eric Bowe is the second from the left. He was the spacecraft communicator talking to the crew during Discovery's climb to orbit. On the far left of your screen, astronaut Chris Ferguson, who was the weather Capcom coordinator, in touch with Chief Astronaut Steve Lindsay during the countdown for launch this evening. Again, a perfect ascent for Discovery. The shuttle and its 7 crew members now en route to the International Space Station. The chase is on for a docking with the International Outpost on Sunday evening. Discovery currently in a preliminary orbit, an elliptical orbit that will be raised at its apogee about 26 minutes from now through what is known as the OMS 2 burn. The orbital maneuvering system engines will fire once again to begin to refine Discovery's orbit. The actual rendezvous to the International Space Station began with launch itself. The International Space Station at the time of launch was flying 225 miles over the Indian Ocean southwest of Tasmania. Discovery has completed the expenditure of residual fuel through the main propulsion system. The crew will be given a go a short time from now to shut down the auxiliary power units. They will not be required again until the typical flight control system checkout the day before landing. Landing now scheduled for September 10th at the Kennedy Space Center.
Discovery, you are go for APU hide shutdown.
Copy, APU hide shutdown. We'll get right to it, Eric. Thanks.
And Discovery, when you're ready, I'll give you the deltas for page 3-4.
Okay, we'll call you right back.
This is Mission Control Houston, 15 minutes since the launch of Discovery from the Kennedy Space Center. The orbiter and its 7 crew members in the preliminary orbit as the race to catch up to the International Space Station on Sunday night has begun. We're 23 minutes away from the first engine firing of the orbital maneuvering systems since main engine cutoff. That'll be about a 12-second firing of both orbital maneuvering system engines, what is known as the OMS 2 burn, that will refine the apogee of this elliptical orbit that Discovery is in. The perigee of the orbit to be refined and heightened later in the midst of rendezvous maneuvers that will carry Discovery on a precise path for a docking with the International Space Station Sunday night. The Mechanical Systems Officer in Mission Control reports a good shutdown of the auxiliary power units.
And Discovery CJ, tail-only control is not required. You can do everything else on page 3-4 as written, 105 on time.
Okay, tail only not required, everything as written. Here we go.
As Discovery's crew begins to set up shop in orbit and prepare for the orbital maneuvering system engine firing about 21 minutes from now. We'll be heading back down to the Kennedy Space Center shortly for replays of the launch that occurred 17.5 minutes ago, an uneventful ride to orbit. Everything aboard the orbiter functioned perfectly.
Discovery, in 30 seconds we'll have spreading for 1 minute. We will be unable to talk to you.
Discovery, roger.
The Mechanical Systems Officer has informed Flight Director Richard Jones that we are in good shape for an on-time closure of the external tank umbilical well doors on the orbiter, on the belly of the orbiter, through which flash photography was conducted for about 20 seconds following the separation of the external tank after main engine cutoff. There will be no still photography or video handheld by the crew because Discovery arrived in orbit in darkness tonight.
A TIG of 39 minutes even, and then you can reload.
Okay, copy, Houston. We'll give you 39 minutes even, and then we'll reload the targets.
That is good readback.
Commander Rick Sturckow acknowledging the call from Capcom Eric Bowe, the timing of the orbital maneuvering system, the OMS 2 burn. That will be about a 1 minute, 3-second firing of both orbital maneuvering system engines to raise the perigee, the apogee, I should say, of Discovery's elliptical orbit. This is Mission Control Houston. We're heading back down to the launch site at the Kennedy Space Center for about 15 minutes or so of launch replays of
maneuver when you are ready.
Of tonight's liftoff of Discovery and its climb to orbit. Commander Rick Sturckow and pilot Kevin Ford about to maneuver Discovery into the correct orientation for the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines in the OMS 2 burn. This apogee correction maneuver to increase the height of the apogee of Discovery's elliptical orbit. That engine firing coming up in about 17.5 minutes. As you continue to watch the replays of the launch of Discovery that occurred about 25 minutes ago on board the orbiter up on the flight deck, Commander Rick Sturckow, pilot Kevin Ford, flight engineer José Hernández, and Pat Forrester are working the procedures to maneuver Discovery to the correct orientation for the OMS 2 burn, the orbital maneuvering system engine burn, that is coming up in just 13 minutes, a 1-minute, 2-second firing of both orbital maneuvering system engines to raise the apogee of the shuttle's orbit as it begins the chase to catch up to the International Space Station and a docking to the complex and its half-dozen crew members on Sunday night.
Discovery. Kevin is complete with the MPS power down, and we'll get to the ET doors in just a second.
Discovery, we copy. No deltas.
With Discovery on its way, in good shape in its preliminary orbit, the timeline of events will unfold over the course of the next few days. On Saturday will be the usual inspection of Discovery's thermal protection heat shield that will be conducted by Discovery's astronauts using the orbiter boom sensor system. That will set Discovery up for additional rendezvous maneuvers and a docking to the International Space Station Sunday night just after 8 p.m. Central Time. The first of 3 spacewalks on this mission, to be conducted by Danny Olivas and Nicole Stott out of the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, is now scheduled for Tuesday, September 1st, beginning in the late afternoon Central Time. The other 2 spacewalks by Olivas and European Space Agency astronaut Christer Fuglesang will take place on Thursday, September 3rd, and Saturday, September 5th. Discovery will remain docked to the International Space Station until Tuesday, September 8th, undocking at mid-afternoon, with a landing back at the Kennedy Space Center on Thursday evening, September 10th.
And Discovery, Kevin, we are ready. We're watching.